going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 47 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Friday, January 31st, 2025. I'm your host, Zach Malamo. Before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the NBA as the New York Knicks are in action tomorrow night, taking on the Los Angeles Lakers at MSG. And the Knicks continue to roll right now on a 5-game win streak, back-to-back wins over tough opponents in the Western Conference in Memphis and Denver. And the winning streak stands at 5. And now they take on the Los Angeles Lakers, an 8:30 start on Saturday night, prime time for the Knicks at MSG. The Lakers are 27-19 on the year. Knicks sit at 32-16 in third place in the Eastern Conference, and they just continue to roll right now. A lot of game time decisions for the Lakers heading into this one, including Rui Hachimura, LeBron James, as well as Dorian Finney-Smith. But prime time and at the Garden, it seems like a lot of those guys will end up playing. But for the Knicks, they just got to continue to roll. Home court's been a big thing for them, 17-8 at the Garden so far this season. And on this win streak right now, 5 games, they just continue to trounce opponents and hold the top scorers of those opponents to really minimal outputs throughout the day. Nikola Jokic, obviously a MVP candidate every single year and one of the best players in the league, only had 17 points the other day. It was all about Jamal Murray for the Denver Nuggets. But on the Knicks side, the offense has just been continuing to roll, and guys like Mikal Bridges really stepping up in this stretch. And even when he had a bad game, so to speak, versus Denver, OG Anunoby steps up and puts up over 20 plus in that one. So, the Knicks have everything rolling for them on the offensive end. Their defense kind of is a bit shaky when it comes to allowing 3-pointers in certain games, but they've seemed to figure that out as they went on that losing streak. And I really think that woke this Knicks team up and really told them that nothing's going to be easy. The goal of winning an NBA championship, this is just the small part of it. And those losing streaks can't really add up, and those problems that the Knicks had defensively just could not continue to happen. And I really think it woke the Knicks up, like I said, and they're in a good spot right now as they take on the Lakers tomorrow night, and a game that you're expecting the Knicks to continue to win, and you really wouldn't doubt them right now on this 5-game win streak. And the Lakers have been really, really strong in the Western Conference, and just one loss in a little while, and they've really packed up these wins, and 5 wins in 6 games. So they've really looked good so far this season. And like I said, they're sitting right now pretty in first place in their division and right in the middle of the Western Conference. They've done a great job. LeBron as well as AD, and just the rest of the squad has really stepped up this year. And the Lakers looking good, middle of the pack in the Western Conference. So we'll see what happens tomorrow night, but an 8:30 start. Make sure you tune in. It's going to be a great one as LeBron and the Lakers versus Brunson and the Knicks. This one, 8:30 tomorrow night at MSG. And let's finish things off in the college game with a college basketball update. And let's look at yesterday's games just quickly, as just a couple of games that really stood out. One stood out way more than the other. And just looking in the Big Ten, couple of games there. The big one in my mind, unranked UCLA at Pauley Pavilion on their home floor absolutely trounces number 16 Oregon. And this one was not even close. Even the halftime score, UCLA was up by 14. They end up winning this game by 26 points. And Oregon looks pretty much in danger of not being ranked anymore after a huge loss like that. UCLA gets its 5th straight win and its 4th straight win over a ranked opponent. And then this one just wasn't even close. Oregon had no answer. And you're looking at a guy like Jackson Shelstad, who's the top scorer for Oregon so far this season, him and Nate Biddle. Jackson Shelstad held to 0 points on the day on 0 of 2 shooting. didn't shoot the ball a lot, but even so, UCLA's defense was on point in this one. Nate Biddle only had 13 points in this game and was only held to 5 rebounds, a big man down low. UCLA just did everything right here, and they absolutely clobbered Oregon, like I said. So that's a massive win for UCLA, and they just continue to roll right now at 16-6, 7-4 in conference play. Oregon, on the other hand, a team that went undefeated in non-conference, sits at 16-5 with a 5-5 conference record in the Big Ten. Just shows you how tough it is to win games in conference for a team like Oregon, their first year in a real tough conference like this. Yes, the Pac-12 had its tough years, but I mean, this is just a new animal in college basketball for a team like Oregon, and Dana Altman has to really get his guys settled here as they're falling off just a little bit. I mean, just a massive, massive loss, like I said. So this could be a real defeating one for Oregon, but they've still figured things out. It's just been a little bit tricky navigating their way through Big Ten play. So that's something that they'll have to work on. But the other game I'll talk about also came in the Big Ten and was another upset, a home underdog taking down an away favorite, and this one was unranked Nebraska taking down number 18 Illinois, and this one went into overtime, and Nebraska, credit to them, they outscore Illinois 10-4 in overtime and get their 13th win on the year. Has not been easy for the Cornhuskers in Big Ten play as well. They moved to just 3-7 in Big Ten play. Then you look at Illinois on the other side, and the injury bug, the sickness bug has really gotten to Illinois, and I think they really need to press the reset button after what's been a long couple of weeks for them. They go on the road, and it's a tough environment, and credit to Bryce Williams, who had 8 points in overtime, had 27 on the day for Nebraska. He really stepped up big time. And when you look at Illinois, just getting those guys back from injury and the health concerns, I think that's just the motive right now for Illinois. So they really need to also really press the reset button in my mind in terms of Big Ten play. They're only 6-5 in Big Ten play on the year. They've played tough opponents, but a team like Illinois who's really looking to make it really late into March and into April, they need to pick up some wins here. And 14-7 is a good record right now, but something that Illinois will probably want to improve on and think that maybe they could get it a little bit better right now as one of the top teams in their minds in the Big Ten Conference. So very interesting as two massive upsets, like I said, and really looks forward to Saturday's games. Let's look at tomorrow, and it's a absolutely loaded slate of college basketball and a couple games that really stand out at the beginning. I'll start off with the big one, the rivalry, the biggest one in sports in a lot of people's minds. Unranked North Carolina taking on number 2 Duke at Cameron Indoor, and this is a massive one in my mind because Carolina's had their losses. They've had their struggles. They're 13-9 on the year, 6-4 in ACC play. Duke's been rolling through ACC play, even with those tough matchups. They had a tough game last week against NC State and still figured it out. That was on Monday, excuse me. They really figured things out, even though it was a very slow start. So it's not going to be as easy as it looks. They're 13.5-point favorites heading into this one, a 6:30 start. I mean, when you look at that, that's just mind-blowing in a game like this, a rivalry like this, how that spread could be as high as it is. If I'm a betting man, I'm taking North Carolina to keep this one close. I mean, how could you not? The Tar Heels, although the losses continue to pile up and they are not on the level of a team like Duke, just the rivalry itself and getting up for a game like that, both sides of players, I think this game's going to come down to the wire, as it always does between Duke and North Carolina. So a crazy spread to start us off in my mind, at 13.5 with Duke being the favorites at Cameron Indoor. Not really too shocking to some based on how well Duke has played this season, but in a rivalry game, there's no chance I would believe in a spread that high especially in a rivalry between Duke and North Carolina. So that's a really interesting one. To start us off on the day, though, it's going to be number 5 Florida traveling to Knoxville to take on number 8 Tennessee. This one's interesting, 12 o'clock in Knoxville. And like I said, number 5 Florida, who's coming in now as an underdog. Tennessee 4.5-point favorites right now on their home floor. And this is a Tennessee team that lost to Kentucky the other day in a game that they probably should have comfortably won. They struggled mightily when it came to shooting. Kentucky was without a lot of players in that one. Lamont Butler was out, their star point guard. They were also missing Andrew Carr, their big man in transfer from Wake Forest. Both those guys out of the game, and Kentucky still finds a way to go on the road into Knoxville and come up with a win and pull off the shocker there. I think Tennessee, yes, they're looking for a bounce back here, but it kind of told me, it really told the story for me about Tennessee. There's just a little bit of problems when it comes to their shooting consistency. Chaz Lanier is a great, great player, and he's going to have his great days almost all the time, and he's always going to end up being, I feel like, the top player for Tennessee in each and every game. But then you're looking at a guy like Zakai Ziegler, who really struggled shooting in that one, and is not really a guy that they can consistently rely on to put up points for them. So that's an interesting one. On the other side for Florida, they got loads of talent and a lot of guys that could put up points, led by their star in Walter Clayton Jr. He's just a monster in my mind, one of the top players in the SEC, one of the top players in the nation. He is just an animal when it comes to scoring, and I think he's going to give Tennessee's defense a bit of a run here. And I will take Florida with the points here. I don't know exactly if they'll win this one, but 4.5, I think Florida keeps it real, real close. And I think Tennessee's defense is going to have to really step up in this one and bounce back after a really poor performance by their standards against Kentucky on Tuesday night. So we'll see what happens in this one, but that should be a great, great top 8 matchup between Florida and Tennessee in Knoxville. Last couple games that I'll get to here is number 1, Auburn goes on the road. They take on number 23, Ole Miss, and Auburn's 5.5-point favorites in this one, a 2 o'clock start in Oxford. You're expecting Auburn to win this game. Maybe it's a little bit closer, but I feel like Auburn is just matchup proof, and especially now with Johni Broome back and healthy. Although they are going into a tough environment and a ranked opponent on the road, I still think Auburn can handle business here and take down Ole Miss in that one. And really think the spread tells you the story here, as Auburn probably should win this one pretty comfortably on the road, even against a tough ranked opponent. Last couple games I'll get to, and no, it's not going to be Kentucky taking on Arkansas in the return of John Calipari. Kentucky will win that game pretty comfortably in my mind. The last couple of games, though, couple ranked matchups. Number 22 Texas Tech takes on number 6 Houston at the Fertitta Center down in Houston, Texas. And I think the spread really tells you a lot about this one. In the Fertitta Center, Houston is just a different animal. And with how well they've been playing in Big 12 play, plus the fact that they're sitting at 17-3 on the season, 9.5 points as a favorite against number 22 Texas Tech, really not a lot. And it shows that Houston has just so much firepower, and they could really dominate opponents, and no matter who they are in Big 12 play. And although they almost lost that game and probably should have lost that game against Kansas, they were really in it to the last second, and they found a way to pull out a win in the end in double overtime. But just finding ways to win, and even when they're not having a great day, they still figure it out. So Houston, one of the contenders to win it all right now. They've been playing really good basketball down in Houston. So I expect them to continue to roll here and probably take down Texas Tech comfortably, as the spread says so, at 9.5. That one, a 6 o'clock game. And then finally, the 8 o'clock game between the ranked teams. It's number 25 UConn, who's been struggling just a little bit in the Big East and still sitting at 7-3 in the Big East, but 15-6 on the year. And based on the standards that Dan Hurley and his guys have set the last couple of years, a bit disappointing for where they're sitting at right now. But the number 25 ranked team in the nation, they take on number 9 Marquette on the road at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee. And Marquette comes into this game 18-3 on the year, 9-1 in Big East play, and they are 7.5-point favorites taking on UConn. Now, Marquette has been really, really strong, and obviously they're getting the number here based on being on their home floor, but I do think this one is just a little bit closer than people think, as Marquette, it has dropped a couple games here and there, and their one loss in Big East play was a really bad game against Xavier that they dropped on their home floor, a 59-57 loss. But I feel like the other losses, yes, they came to Dayton as well as Iowa State. You're not going to really think too much about the Iowa State loss. More so, you'll think about the Dayton and the Xavier losses here. I really think in the end that UConn, although they've not looked great, they're going to keep this one real close. And 7.5 is just a little bit too much in my mind. I feel like, yes, Marquette has the talent, and on paper, they look like the better team and the better team in the Big East overall. But I just think UConn has to keep this one close. And there's going to be a lot to look at for UConn heading into this game, and a lot of storylines heading into this game for the Huskies of how are they not even close to the level in a lot of people's minds of a team like Marquette. I think they'll prove some doubters wrong and try and challenge Marquette in this one. And I think they will end up giving the Golden Eagles the run for their money here on their home floor. I think they're going to keep it close, and in the end should be a great matchup, 8 o'clock tomorrow night at Fiserv Forum. So make sure you tune into a absolutely loaded slate of college basketball. And we look closer to March, and it's days like this and Saturdays like this that we really look forward to throughout conference play. And it really gets us geared up for the month of March. But really interesting, and make sure you tune into all of those games as they take place tomorrow and into tomorrow night. But that'll do it for episode 47 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malaman. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, and talk to you all on Monday.